Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to be speak English. I was wondering actually about that today because I saw that there are translation machines, so a lot of people actually are hearing my talk being translated from English to Spanish, and I feel a bit sad about that because I can easily do this in Spanish, but people really want me to speak English today, so I'm going to do this in English, but don't hesitate if anything was a little bit unclear. And come to me after the talk, and I'll speak to you in Spanish, explain it again. Anyway, my name is Rosan Bosch, and I'm going to talk about designing for a better world, starting at school, because that's what I do. I have a studio, and what we do is that people say, oh, do you do architecture? Do you do design? You're an artist. No, we work with design as a tool for change and development. So, meaning that I actually don't work alone. I have a lot of people surrounding me, and I work together with them. And in a way, what we're going to talk about today starts a little bit, in a way, it's just a picture, starts a little bit with how I find the people that work in my studio. Because, and they are not the children you work with, preparing them for a future of tomorrow. No, they are young people starting to work or already working today. When I look for somebody in my studio, I have people that have studied architecture, design, interaction design, sociology, anthropologists, people that have studied communication. And when I collect these people surrounding us, I look at, are they extremely social intelligent? Are they open-minded? Are they able to develop new skills? Because I know that whatever they learned at school, some of it might be useful, but a lot of it isn't. Yes? So, and I think that's actually a good example, a point of departure of our talk today. We work in many countries surrounding around the world in all this kind of different projects related to education. And personally, I think that we live a sort of wave of global change in education. It's a bit funny to wonder about why is that? Why does everybody in all these different countries suddenly focus so much on having to change their schools? It's quite easy. It's because we all feel somewhere, that what we're doing is not right. And I think that you have to listen to this little voice in your stomach saying like, hey, actually what I'm doing right now is not entirely right. And then, well, some of them talk to us. So what is it we do? Well, we are designers. We design things. But that's not the objective of what we do. The objective of what we do is the people, their behavior, the change of their behavior, their feelings, their emotions, their experiences. So, and this is what is different in our design studio from a lot of other design and architecture studios, because we very hardcore focus entirely on the change of the people. And the objective is not a nice building, a nice item. But we do make nice items, I'll show you in a moment, and nice environments. Because the fact is, it's something we don't really acknowledge. But the fact is that our physical surroundings have a huge impact on how we feel, how we interact and communicate with the people surrounding us, how we actually experience our life, sometimes even our identity when we come to work, what we meet in the morning, etc. So I believe that when I change this physical surrounding, I can actually have an impact on how you act, interact, feel, and communicate. Yes? Now, today we're going to talk about school, and then I would like to ask one basic question. Because what is it we do at school? Why would I go to school? Why do children go to school? Well, they go to school to learn. But is a school an environment of learning? This is a typical learning environment, yes? This is another typical learning environment. The question is, no, not the question. The fact is what you see here on the left side, is a photo from a drawing, actually it's a fresco, of 800 years old. This is when school was invented, the design, the architecture of school. And then we go through times, and it hasn't changed. We're still basically living the same architecture of schools. I mean, name me one thing in our society that is still the same, one architecture that is still the same as it was for 800 years ago. It's actually quite hard. It might be the church. Even the prisons are much better. Yes? Now, and is this a learning environment? No, it's not. This is just an anecdote, but from MIT, I think it's very interesting. Wiring a student, looking at their brain activity, and then kind of, noticing that it's practically zero during class. With other words, the environment, the architecture we create is not an architect that stimulates our brain activity for learning. And it should, because the truth is that our children that go to school today are going to meet a society in an extreme fast pace of change. They're going to meet challenges that are almost, well, one could say, inhuman. We are going to meet huge challenges. So we need our children to be creative and to be able to, in a different way, to tackle these challenges of tomorrow. We need them to be curious and try to find new solutions. Because the truth is, the inheritance we are giving them is not that nice. The environment, and in this case in Argentina, the economy, yeah. So we need creative, independent, people with initiative and new ideas, yeah? So imagine that this learning environment we are creating activate creativity, that they unleash innovation, and that they motivate students to learn. So what is learning? Yeah? Because that's the way we work with our design. We start asking questions. We say, what's learning? Well, this is learning. I love this photo. This is my boy Milan on the left side. Today he's 16 years old. He plays in the national team of the Netherlands in basketball. His mom very proud, yeah? And on the right side is his big brother, Louis, who is also 2 meters plus and is studying economy. But anyway, at this moment, they're young boys and they're having this fantastic learning experience. They're playing pirates, yes? Now, this little boy Milan, he couldn't even walk yet. When he was 9 months old, he could crawl, with 3, and then he could wave a sword because his big brother had learned him to do so, that he could play pirates, yes? So he learned certain stuff pretty fast. Maybe that laid the basis of his basketball career today. I don't know. But this is an intense learning experience. And that is what learning is. Learning is fun. Learning is strongly related to play, and learning is based on our natural born curiosity. We're all born curious. That's our basic human condition. And it's this curiosity that leads us actually to learning, because we get inspired and we start learning, and that feels good. But when we send our kids to school, and that's what happened with me as a mom, sending my kids to school, what happens? Yes, these children, they learn that the experience of learning, because we talk about the experience of learning, that is actually connected to, first of all, compulsory, having to do it. It's not something you do because you want to do it. No, it's something because somebody tells you to do it. Because if you don't, you won't succeed in life. There are tons of reasons why you have to do it, but it's not because you do want to do it. The next thing is they learn that learning is boring. You have to sit there for hours doing something else than you actually would like to do. Yes? You have to kind of sit it out. That's just the way it is. Yes? And then the last thing I learned very fast, that learning is equivalent with fear. Fear of not doing good enough, fear of being, out of the group, fear of a social context, fear of many different things. Fear. And all of that is not good for learning at all. The contrary. So, I was seeing my boys starting at school, seeing slowly sort of being turned off. Yeah, their curiosity was turned off, their ability, this extremely natural born, strong ability to be creative was turned off, was destroyed. Yes? So I started to think, as a mom and as a designer, hey, this is really wrong. This is hurting me as a mom. There must be other moms out there and fathers that feel the same way. And I think that is what causes this global wave. Because I think there are a lot of other mothers and fathers out there that can see this change in their children, and they don't really know how to act to that. Because we do have a society, and we have to live up to sort of this context we're all part of. Anyway, this fear is also another element which is really, really, really bad. There's an old research from the OECD in Europe, and it tells us that this, emotional fear is the opposite of what you need when you want somebody to learn and develop themselves. So, what should school be? In my opinion, as a designer and architect, school should be a place which unleashes your curiosity and learns you how to kind of use it to actually, move yourself, your own development forward. Yeah? Schools could be a place where you learn how to concentrate, deep, profound concentration, which is different. We don't concentrate in the same way. Also, so you know, actually yourself, independently, what you need in order to, for example, have a break, or a moment of deep concentration. We need to learn how to collaborate, to work together in teams with people of different cultures, different mentalities. We need to learn how to fail. Really, really important. We create schools that, in some kind of reason, where there's only one answer, the right answer. And this is, I don't know if you're familiar with the theory of the growth mindset and, the fixed mindset, the opposite. But the truth is that it's also kind of basic. I think it's like, in Dutch we say it's logic for dogs. It's like, look, if you don't try something and fail, you don't learn. Of course you don't. It's trial and error, and then you try again. So a school should be a climate where you try out all kinds of things, and on the basis of your experiences, you develop yourself. Then a school should learn you how to present. Yes, I use this slide to remember to say this to you, interact or die. I don't want you to now start shouting at me or lay down. But the fact is that if we don't learn how to communicate, how can I, for example, solve these huge problems in the future if I don't know how to bring my brilliant ideas forward and communicate with others? I can't neither collaborate. Now, there's this book, I really like it. Unfortunately, I only have it in Spanish because we met at a conference and I got it as a present, but I also think it has been translated to English, and it's from Francisco Mora. It's a Spanish professor, and he wrote this book. It's called Neuroeducation, but he's like a specialist in what we call neuroarchitecture. He's looking at how does architecture impact our brain, our person. Now, and on the front page of this book it says, solo se puede aprender aquello que se ama. You can only learn what you translated to English like love or feel passionate or connected to. I mean, it's a little bit different to exactly translate this. And I think that this conclusion is extremely important. As he says, it's quite easy. You can memorize something, but you can't truly, understand it. To truly, deeply understand complex things, you have to have a positive emotional connection with what you're doing. Quite easy. Now, when we just stroll back to this photo of, it's actually a photo of a classroom in a university, and compulsory fear, boredom, that is not creating the right environment for having this kind of connection with what you're working with. So, this is where I could help. I'm a designer, I'm a sucker for color and surfaces and things like that and shapes, In a way, when you're a designer and you work with architecture and, actually have a background in contemporary art, you're actually very professional. You're professional in seducing. So yes, of course it looks nice, but it's not the objective it looks nice. The objective is that this little girl there, she chose to sit inside this kind of red cave with her friends because she chose to go there because she wanted, they had doing something with some animals and stuff like that, and they were making animal sounds because they chose to be there. Yes? So this environment sort of seduces them to come and use it. And this is what I would like to talk about today, learning how to learn. Because the physical environment, in a way, can become this third teacher, this physical environment that helps you how to learn, where you can experiment and try things out on your own body. Like, hey, just in this, when I work together with these two guys, it just works much better when we're sitting over there than when we're sitting over there. And when I need to really concentrate, it just feels much better when I'm sitting in the window and have a lot of light than when I'm sitting in a dark space. Or, hey, I need to turn my back on you because then I can concentrate, or the opposite, and so forth and so on. Learning on your body how to learn. This brings me to another really important issue, that why I think things are so wrong and why we sort of know in our belly that they are wrong, is that in education, we sort of deconnected our brain from our body, And it's really kind of crazy thing, because we don't learn only with our brain. We are not deconnected. We are one. And we learn with our entire body. So, well, now I already told you about this. It's like a word we use, the third teacher in the physical environment is helping you. And we say the first teacher is the teacher. The second teacher, that are your pals, the other students you work together with, just as important often as the first one, if not more. And then we have the third teacher, the physical environment. Now, what happens if you have a physical environment that helps you actually learning? Just think about it. It also gives you a sort of, one could say, independence. Because there's a lot of children that go to schools where they have teachers, and I'm going to say a taboo thing, that are not good teachers. Yes? I'm just telling you the truth. Or maybe they're not nice teachers. Or maybe this particular teacher doesn't bound with you. Yes? Happens? Sounds familiar? Yes, it does. We all had some teacher we hated. No, didn't we? Yes. So, what happens in this school where maybe you're so unlucky to not have this brilliant teacher that can help you? Well, then the physical environment can actually be a liberation, because it can help you how to learn better. Now, starting to work with design and pedagogy and education in schools, in the beginning we just started like all architects, and it didn't work. Yeah? And very fast we discovered that if we wanted to have this focus on, as an objective, on learning goals, and creating learning environments, instead of just answering the brief, doing a school for 800 students, having that many classrooms, a gym, etc., we kind of had to change our conversation. And we noticed that talking with schools, that we are coming from Mars and they were coming from Jupiter or whatever, and we couldn't really connect as designers, because they talked about one thing and we talked about another thing, and we didn't have a common language. So first of all, we developed a system, and I'm going to tell you about it. And this system enables us to connect these three core elements which need to be connected if you want your architecture or your design to help you to actually develop your school. Yes? That means that, first of all, the most difficult one is the one called organization. Your organization needs to change. We have organization of one teacher in a classroom with 25, 30, 35 children. Yes? Now, if you want to keep this model of organization, corridors and rooms that are perfect for fitting 30 kids, well, that's the right architecture. Now, if you start changing your organization because you want them to work in groups, cross-disciplinary, with projects, and so on and so forth, then, of course, your architecture will change. So, the organization of your school is connected with the design of your school and with your pedagogy, because these environments, like I just showed you some photos of, also enable you to work with different methodologies. So, what we're going to talk about is, how do you design a school when you think the design of the school connected to the organization of the school and connected to the pedagogy. Now, for that, we developed 6 key principles. And these key principles, they didn't came from one day to the other, and we started, with 3, and we changed them, and so forth and so on. And this is during the years with a lot of different people. So I can't even take copyright of them. I don't want to. I want you to copy, take a photo, and I'll also, later on, we get into that, I can send you something. I want you to use them and learn from it, okay? So there's 6 principles, and they're all metaphors. And these metaphors cover, in a way, a learning situation, and a design situation, one could say, and a way we communicate. Because there's also a little element in this. We talk about digital education and physical education. Now I'm just making a little difference because there's a reason. Why would we physically actually still go to school? Just asking. I mean, some have asked this question. I really think that something else happens with us human beings when we meet and we are in a physical environment together. We all know this. It's not the same as when you're just alone with your digital devices as when you're actually interacting with people in a physical space. So these are about physical space, but of course they often have a digital layer on top or underneath them. The first one I would like to introduce to you is called mountaintop. Yes? Now, these metaphors, they cover different ways, I call them learning situations. And no, it's not like you go 1 hour to one space and then you go 1 hour to the next space. No, you should see them as kind of different, situations that evolve over time in different kind of connections and in different series. Mountaintop covers one direction communication. What I'm doing right now, I am speaking to you and you are listening and we're not really interacting. Now, this is a situation that you use, either with large groups, but also with small peer-to-peer, like the girls in the corner. And it doesn't always need to be in a classroom. It can also be like in the environment you can see here down here, in an open space. But it does require an environment where it's easy, to sort of focus on in a unidirectional way. Now, the next one we call cave. Cave, as the symbol shows you, is about not communicating with anybody. It's about communication with yourself, It's about deep concentration, short concentration, different forms of concentrating. Now, we are all different. Some people really prefer to lay down in order to focus, and others, they just fall asleep immediately and they need to sit up. Yes? We're all different. So, these are just some examples of different environments that you can choose to concentrate. The third one we call campfire. Now, campfire situations, they are, working in groups, teams, collaborating. Now, a campfire is not just having a classroom with 5, group tables, and now we're all sitting and talking in small groups. No, campfire is also about taking responsibility for your team and your collaboration, thinking about what the other people of the team need to create the best possible collaboration situation with your team. Now, there are some examples. It could be these flexible tables. This is at the University of Copenhagen. This is at the Vitra School. We're going there in a moment. I'll show you. It's an organic table where you can actually decide how far should you sit from the people you collaborate with, because it actually changes your conversation and the way you sort of feel in the group of people depending on the distance. Yesterday at dinner, I was sitting with some very nice people, and we had this great conversation, but we were all like almost laying on the table, because it was so far away on the other side. It was really bad. I mean, they're round, so they symbolize we're sitting here and talking together, but the distance made it almost impossible to have this feeling of having a real conversation. Now, this table kind of provides a tool for kids to try out. Yeah, how and when do I communicate better? Now, this is just what I would call a room in a room. It's a platform in a window. And there's girls that decided to go there because they needed to work together. So it's the decision of going somewhere. When you, as a group, decide, now we're going to work together, and then you do something. Maybe you collect the flexible tables and you put them together. But doing this act, you become more like a team already. The fourth one is called watering hole. Watering hole is the animal, the place where animals would go in the evening and drink some water, and the lion speaks with the gazelle for one moment before they start chasing each other again. It's these places of, informal exchange of information, knowledge sharing, extremely important. Most companies plan these, systematically to guarantee a high level of knowledge exchange in between different departments and different groups of people. And we know that that is vital for especially a company based on, creativity and knowledge. Now, why don't we do that in schools? Because schools are also based on knowledge exchange, creativity, and knowledge. Now, here are some examples. Often, watering holes are on spots where you move, where you pass by. And they're fantastic places also to communicate in other ways. For example, having exhibitions with work so you can see what the others have done. Here we have some examples. They're on the left side for you, all of you. No, that's your right side, sorry. On your right side, you can see these red trees. This is at the university in the north of Denmark. And because these trees have this big, because these tables have this big red trees growing from them, you see them on large distance, so they sort of call on your attention. Because one of the things of a watering hole is that they have to be visual, that you have to feel attracted to them. That's why the table up here on the higher image has all these different colors. Again, it's also something in a connection of corridors. Or on the other photo, again, it's actually a corridor. And it's obvious when you're sitting or when you're at a watering hole space, I might get disturbed. I'm here with my little laptop and you pass by with, two of my girlfriends and they're just chatting and I hear what they're saying. It might disturb me, but I also hear what they're saying. So I also get this knowledge. And when it really disturbs me, I can take my laptop and go down and sit at a cave. I know that when I'm at a watering hole, I am at a watering hole. Now, the fifth one is called hands-on. This is about connecting your brain with your body, making sure that you don't only learn, with your brain. I don't think you only learn with your brain, but you can also activate the rest of your body. Now, this for a designer is a bit a tricky thing. Because when you're a designer, you need to facilitate the spaces, for example, so that you can do things which make it dirty, water, you need materials, you need spots where you can, have your materials, your tools. Sometimes maybe these spaces or environments need to be used by kids that are not allowed to touch everything there, and others, yes, and so on and so forth. Also, just seeing the materials might inspire you. So these spaces, hands-on spaces, require special attention from us, and it's been actually quite hard for us, often with schools working, to embed them in their pedagogical programs. Here are some examples from different school environments, and the lower one is from the Legal Development Department. Then the sixth principle is called movement. Now, movement, when I talk about movement, it's because simply when we sit still all day, yes, our brain starts to fall asleep. It's very basic. We need to move. I also think that we have developed a culture where we see upon movement as a negative thing, while it's actually a positive thing. And we don't accept that people have different needs of movement. Some kids that just need to run around all the time. And actually, they have a hard time learning how to read when they're not allowed to move. Over 20% of all people need to move a body part to activate their brain. Yeah? Do you know somebody that does like this all the time? Very annoying. Yeah? You know them? My brother is one of these. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Etc. So, do we know people that need to walk around when they're talking the mobile phone, that they can't sit still? Yeah, doing that? Exactly, there you go. So, look, the architecture of a classroom is so bad for learning because it makes you sit still. Yeah? So, movement is actually a tricky one because movement from an architectural point of view requires space. Yeah? Requires open spaces, so I feel that I can jump, start running around. Yeah? Now, an open space where I can jump and run around will turn into a dead space when it's not in use. Then you suddenly have this huge open empty spaces where nobody is doing anything and feels a bit intimidated about using them. So this requires a very careful planning, having environments which are empty, which make you feel you want to do you go from one spot to the other in your school and you just take a short run. And that's okay, that's good. That's not bad. I'm sure that most people here recognize, no running in the corridor, yeah? Finished, over with. We don't do that one anymore. We run in the corridor. Okay, so this is from the Vitra school, the Saksiyat Academy in Abu Dhabi, and the other one is from a school in Denmark, where they sort of, made the interior and the exterior grow together, so they run in and out. Now, the interesting thing it's the red picture from that one in Denmark school, is that the university, this is Danish, Aalborg University, anyway, that there's a university that did this quite intensive research because they started to change their program and make their kids move a lot. And then they measured their results as opposite to their physical condition. And after 3 years, they could notice that actually, while the students were getting more healthy and having a better condition, physically conditioned, their study results were also getting better and better. Now, they were doing a lot of other initiatives at the same time, so from a pure scientific point of view, maybe it's very hard to kind of isolate it, but still, I think the numbers were very interesting, and I sincerely believe that that is something we should do. Oh, there's a fly. Anyway, so now we all talk about these 21st century skills, which I sincerely believe in. I think that when we go to school, we have to learn skills. We have to learn how to learn. Because when we are on the other side and we go into society, there are so many things that have changed already. And I'm very sorry to say so, but yes, some of the content you will get at school, but a lot of the content you will find. And that is a big change. And whether you like it or not, because you can see, I think it's wrong and so on. Yeah, but that is just the way society is accelerating and changing right now. Like it or not, adapt to it or not. It's like, people that said for 15 years ago, it's like, I'm not going to get one of these smartphones. No way I'm going to get one of these smartphones. Yeah? I mean, it's not an option. So, 21st century skills are about actually developing these skills to be able, as good as possible, to embrace this new society, these developments which we don't know what are. At this moment, in your country, 63% of the students starting in primary are going to have a job that doesn't exist today. That's a fact. So, how can you possibly, seriously, think that you are preparing them for a certain job? You're not. The only thing you can give them is the best possible skills to learn whatever they need in the future. And that has to go through motivation. Because if they're not motivated, and if they don't have a positive feeling about developing themselves and learning, all their life they're going to be struggling with not wanting to learn. Now, I would like you to show some projects. And unfortunately, I have lined up, because we had this really nice conversation at dinner yesterday, so I put some extra projects in my presentation, and I have only 100 slides left for you in the last 20 minutes. So, and I don't have my computer up here. Often when I do presentations, I kind of change my presentations while doing them. But unfortunately, we had some trouble, so it's over there. So when the boys from technology, they are listening with me, no, they're not. At a certain moment, I shout at them, and then they might jump over some projects, because if not, I won't be able to make it before my time is over. Now, the first school I would like to show to you is the Vitra School. Vitra School is a school in Stockholm, in Sweden. It got very known, that's why I took it with me. But Vitra is actually a school organization. They have several schools, over 30 schools. And when we started working with them, they had a problem, because they had made this blueprint, architectural blueprint, of the school of the future. And they had built some of these schools. And they were, around, some of them, they started 5 years ago, so some of them were maybe 3 years old. And they were outdated already. And they said, okay, this is a very expensive thing to do, How can we adapt our environment to these changes so we can keep on developing ourselves pedagogically, to the future? So what we did with them is that we developed a design manual for their schools. Now, we did 3 pilot schools together with them, and then they had a design manual to implement. One of them was this one, which is actually an old industrial building from a telephone company called Ericsson that had moved out of the city. So it was actually an old factory building. Another one we did was a newly school, which we were together with the architects. We built a new school. And the third one was an old building, which was severely protected because it was national heritage, where we were not allowed to change anything, and we also worked in that. I have some examples from the last one as well. Anyway, so in this school, what is the biggest difference in between this school and most schools? That's the layout of the planning. Yes? Now, this is a plan drawing. It's a school from kids from 6 to 12 years old. Not that many, actually, 250 children. It's a small school. They are calculated that always at least 2 groups will probably be outside. So it's actually adapted for 200 kids being inside of the building at the same time. But it can have 10 groups of 25, they have groups of 25, having like a session, like a collective session at the same moment. Now, I don't know if this one, works with, no, it doesn't work with the light. Anyway, you can see there are no corridors and classrooms. Then people tell me like, oh, you build schools without walls. I'm like, no, I would never build a school without a wall. I build schools with different shaded spaces, yes? So this has a completely different structure, the school, because it has big spaces, small spaces, and you actually decide yourself. The students have a very large autonomy. They move around in these different spaces. Now, so what happens that the school at one moment of the day might have groups like this and a bit later like that. So actually the environment is extremely flexible. Now this is a bit funny because a lot of people talk with me and they say, I want a flexible learning environment. And then they imagine things with walls, we go back and forth, and tables, we move around. And sometimes that is actually a good solution at one spot. But if you do it all over the place, what happens is that in a way, the space is extremely flexible and we feel lost in that. And this is, I always say, like, what is the most flexible thing in the room? I mean, we are the most flexible thing in the room. We can move and it will even be good for us, yeah? Building this movement into our space. So instead of that we go into the spaces and we say, we stay and we make the tables move around, we should move. So here we go inside the Vitra school. You see the big blue mountain in the middle. We see a table up front with some boxes in it, which you can change with materials. And there's a little kitchen behind. This kitchen you see there, this is not a kitchen for making food. This is a kitchen for experiments, doing cold, warm water, etc. Because this is a hands-on area. Now, the Blue Mountain is also theater, can collect a large group of kids, opposite if it is in a theater. And here we see some kids. Who says that you learn best sitting on a chair? I mean, these girls, they obviously think it's fine like this. Another thing is in the back, in the window, you see this, what I call concentration boxes. They're small, kind of one-person, environments where you can sit and concentrate. Here we move inside the Blue Mountain. There's a little cinema. You can sit there and work. On the opposite side of the environment, here we have the organic table in big size, and there's this tree. This tree is really important because not only does the design provide for new ways of organizing your environment and new experiences, it also gives us the opportunity to change the way we talk about our environment. I strongly believe that the way we name things in our surrounding is part of the thoughts we create about them. Yes, the metaphors we live by. Very nice book by a guy called Ben Johnson. But anyway, so what we do here is that we create this tree. So you are going to have English under the tree, yeah? And you're going to have mathematics in the cave or on the Blue Mountain. So we create a different language of our school environment, which just feels so much more fun to be part of than having English in classroom 152 again. Now, this is one of those platforms in the window, designed together with the kids. Some of the kids we did research with. We have a lot of processes where we do like user involvement and work with children. And with these children, we worked on, how do you concentrate? We had very surprising results. And one of them was that they said that they actually would like to be in an environment where you're separated from the big crowd. But if you want, you can just lift up and look at it and see what's going on. Now, of course, they also have small rooms where they can be in. Another thing we designed, working together with the children, is this green island. It's very interesting because the first designs we showed, we had a panel of children that had to accept our designs before we would show it to management. Yes, important. Now, they looked at our first panels of design and they told us, too many chairs. Yes. So then we went back and designed something different together with them. And this is the green island, and I took some photos here to see how it's used. And what do we see here? That these kids, they have a totally different way of putting their body, but they're really working, but they have a different way of putting their body physically in space, collaborating. I mean, we're moving away from having our ink on a paper. We're moving away from having to put our body in this kind of, situation like this, which was perfect when we had to write with ink or sit in church. But now we're talking about learning. So the position of your body is different. Now, this is a small core in the middle of the school. It's called the Media Lab. There are small rooms in it they have a little sound studio, but also spaces for concentration if you're one of them that likes to be in a bit darker space with a little light in a space where you can actually close the door. And all these kids there, they know that when they're in there, this is a cave. So here, we don't speak. Now, also, sometimes a bit more traditional gatherings, because that's also part of it. It's not like, hey, the teacher never meets with the kids anymore kind of environment. It's just different. It's more fluent. There's a larger diversity of situations throughout the day. Very important little detail on this photo is the little carpet you see on the floor. The boy who's laying on it, there's small carpets, and he can actually take them with him. Yeah, meaning that this carpet gives him the opportunity to sit wherever he wants. For me, that's a little bit a symbol of this empowerment we actually want to give our kids. It's not that they sit where I tell them to sit, they sit where they want to sit, which is a very different concept. This is in the core of the school. We call it the dance hall. It's actually not the gym. They have a gym next to the school. This is actually a space made for wild movement, making a lot of noise, because noise, of course, is an issue. Yes, a lot of people say, what about the acoustics in a place like that? Well, the acoustics, of course, you need to have okay acoustics. That's a basic kind of, for spaces in general. But what happens here is that actually you are able to, if you need more concentration, you can actually go away and find a spot which is quiet, which you can't when you're in a classroom with 30 others. Now, in the center of the school, we have this big space. You can actually close the door, and it's isolated, so you can make all the noise you want, and nobody can hear you. And it's used frequently when people just need to have a break. So this big change here we see, for me, is the DNA of the change we talk about in education. Going from passive to active. From having a teacher that's enlightening us with his knowledge while I sit, and don't move and just receive, to the opposite. Yes? Well, I am active, have to find this knowledge and have a teacher helping me doing so in the same moment, developing my skills. This is fundamental and is extremely hard, but that is a change we're talking about. And in this sense, the physical environment can help with that. I have one little example from another Vitra school here, which is the one that, it's just a detail from that school, which is the one which was like, I call it heritage, so we couldn't really do much. It's just an example, because here we placed, we call it a catalysator of change. What you're looking at here, I don't have this. In the middle, you see in the middle there, you see this kind of black box with the red sofa. That's the library. It's a tiny little library. But by putting this library in the middle of this big open space, and where you see the blue is actually the entrance. So the kids enter in the morning, and then they have this big variated kind of learning environment with this little library in the middle. And then the teachers have different there's also a floor downstairs, all this kind of differentiated environment surrounding it. Now the idea in this area was that by putting into this library, we call it the Trojan horse, this guy that knows a lot about digital technology and can actually help the teachers. He was the librarian, but he was also there to help the teachers look at, how can I help my students, searching for information? How can I help them to learn how to validate what I'm finding? Because a lot of them don't know. They don't know how to do this. So we decided to make the librarian also kind of a person to help the teachers and put him in the middle of this little library. And then this library, well, it's this kind of half-open environment, and it's surrounded by all these different learning and meeting spots. So when a class would come there, they would experience this environment where they would work different, and teachers could start to plan project-based and multidisciplinary sessions in this area, and having the help of the librarian. It worked very well. It worked so well that this photo, which is taken at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, shows you some students that stand there. And I know that the library is closed, because the sliding door is closed. Now in Sweden, at 4 o'clock, you're off. Actually, school finishes at 1:30, 2 o'clock. So normally the building is entirely empty. I mean, no student with a little bit of respect for himself is going to stay at school. Huh? And here they do, because they love it. It's the coolest place in town. So they stay at school, doing socializing, homework, whatever they do, working with what they want. And I think that's extremely important because it's this emotional change. They love their school. They don't hate their school. It's a place they like. And another detail in this photo is the guy with the red, thing. He's a teacher. And he's sitting there preparing something, or maybe he's also just hanging out because he likes the environment. Very important. Here, the environment really has an impact on the behavior. Here we have some more slides of this one. Now, unfortunately for all of you, we got through from the 100 slides, maybe we passed 18. Huh? And I cannot do 82 slides in some few minutes. And I also wanted to give you the opportunity to ask questions, which is going to be completely impossible with 5 minutes left. This is, by the way, the little classroom in the open space, or the mountaintop environment. So, I have to improvise what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit more, and then I'm going to be out there, and you can all come to me and talk to me. Shall we say that? Good. Good. This is a guy I met for many years ago, and he said to me, instead of asking students what they want to be when they grow up, I asked them what problem they want to solve. And I just think that quote, I like it because it captures it all. It's this change from passive to active. It's this actually change of our DNA when we talk about schools and educational systems. Yeah. Now, the big challenge in all this is transformation. Because the truth is, here in Argentina, for example, I work amongst others with the government, and no questions. But we're looking at this secondary education, public schools. Yes. The truth is that we can't just think of these changes as only being new schools made. It's easy to build a new school according to these principles. It's actually easy. You can, employ teachers that want to be part of this. You can make the building the way you want it. You can start at afresh. Yes? It might still be hard, but it's still easier than actually transforming. It's like, changing horses while you're riding. That's really, really hard. Yeah? And this is also why the design comes into the picture. Because it's not that if you just come into one of these environments we design, that you look, people and then they change entirely. No, but it's a help. And if this kind of structure in our building and design is not this kind of strong, pushing, in a way, people and inspiring them in a way, in changing their behavior, it's almost impossible to have a large group of people change behavior all at once at the same time. Because we talk about it, but it stays an abstraction. At the moment we translate it into design, it becomes a reality we relate to and we act upon. Yeah? So now, to finish off, I have a little project. I'm so sorry, I had made all this a far too long presentation. I got inspired yesterday, I'm sorry. I have a little project. So we don't go to the schools in Abu Dhabi. I thought it would be nice to show you something really, really cool. But I have a small project I'd like to show you, which is in Bornholm, in Copenhagen, in Denmark, in a small island, a very rural place. And why I want to show it to you is that this is the building from the outside. Yes, it's like a normal house. Yeah? Now, this is a special school. We call it an after school. It's a school where kids go, where you, in a sort of way, you're really tired of going to school. And parents see it almost like the last, kind of solution. It's like, okay, if they don't go there, they're probably going to drop out. Yeah? By the way, do you know that the dropout rate of students in secondary in Argentina is 52%? Every second student. Yeah, I think that's a really shocking number. Anyway, so this is a school for preventing this, yeah? Now, next to this school is an old sanatorium where they live. It's a sort of a boarding school. You go there for 6 months or something. And they have some other spaces. But why I show you this little building, I show you because this is the outside of this little house, which in the old days was the house of the head of the school. But she moved, and now we go inside. This is the inside of the house. And I just love this change. Look at this. And we designed it with the students. And it has all these different opportunities in there, It's not because they can't make, YouTube videos. They don't need a green screen, environment, but it just stimulates them to do so. And moreover, it also stimulates the teachers to do so and integrate it in whatever they do as activities with the kids. You know, I mean, this is a little tiny, you know, the blue kind of thing behind the yellow table before you saw. It's a little bubble. I mean, that's a little tiny cinema we made, and they just think it's so cool. They love that, you know. And they're there using it for presentations, for small groups. I think the very important thing about this in little school is that these boys and girls, they're around 15, most of them, 14, 15, 16, they just say like, we love that because it's not school. Huh? And they were learning and they're developing, but it's not school. And I think that in a way, for me, that is the thing we want to achieve. We don't want to think of them of school because the word school became something negative. We want to think of it as a learning environment where they can actually develop themselves. And they like it. And they feel this rush you get when you're learning something new. And it's actually really nice. Well, these are my finishing remarks. Now, I don't have a finishing slide because I'm like halfway. So we'll have to do with this. I just would like to say thank you. I have one question. I mean, the guys from technology, I mean, tecnología, ahí detrás, ave, una pregunta. Sí. ¿Puedes hacerme un favor? Mira mi presentación. Y al final de la presentación de los slides anuncios.
She wants the technical people to go to the very last slide.
Es que ahora que no tengo mi ordenador. Gracias. Just a moment. We're going there. No, we do like music. La cucaracha, ya no puede caminar. Can you find that? Okay, I'm going to do the talking while he's looking. It's before the last one. Not the last one, before the last one. Yeah? There he is. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I have some, because the thing is, I published, you know, I wrote this very little book. It's a little book, it's a very modest book about this learning principles and design principles. Yes, it's called Designing a Better World Starts at School, because I sincerely believe if we can actually somehow, you know, change in each person, because each child is a person, change this notion, give them this power, the feeling of power, that they can actually develop themselves, you know, much bigger than they are, yeah? Instead of kind of limiting them. No, make them grow, make them blossom. Then we actually create the best basis for a better society. And I believe that if you guys, all of you, start working with these principles, you don't always have to transform your entire school. You can just start thinking in campfires and caves and mountaintops, and then try to arrange something. You can also call me, I don't mind, but you know, you can also do it yourself. Yes, this is the thing. The idea is that this can empower you. Now, this book, unfortunately, Amazon, you know, does not, somehow there's problems in Argentina, some reason. It's in Spanish, Diseñar un mundo mejor, etc., and in English. Now I'm going to give you a proposition. If you send me an email, yeah, I can send you the digital book. Yeah? You send me an email, you just write who you are, and I send you the digital book for free. Yes? Good. But let me know if you want it in English or in Spanish. Yes? Good. Well, that was all for me for today, and thank you.